Hi, I'm Michelle Rupp, host of AFMC TV. Thank you for joining us. AFMC TV is a place to consider as a healthcare hub. AFMC is a healthcare nonprofit. We specialize in making our lives, businesses, and communities healthy. This space was created to share information with the community. You'll hear from healthcare experts on a broad range of topics. Medical topics like immunizations and telehealth, to lifestyle topics like strengthening a routine or keeping your family hydrated. Our promise to you is to keep you informed in a digital way, providing useful information to you and your family. Again, thank you for joining us and welcome to AFMC TV. About the vaccine. In the next hour, we will look at
a very hard thing.
this video will provide ideas
And also make sure
Welcome into this week's episode of AFMC TV. This week we are talking all things hydration and how you can better prepare your kids for being outside, as well as maybe some of the indicators they might give you if they're feeling thirsty without telling you they're feeling thirsty. Joining me today is pediatrician Dr. Chad Rogers. He's also our Chief Medical Officer here at AFMC. And Dr. Chad, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
So, pediatrician, you see kids of all ages, you know. What are some of the behavioral signs kids would exhibit when they're thirsty, when they're being dehydrated, feeling dehydrated?
Right. So, like as adults, you kind of have that thirst that you get that kind of indicates that you need to drink water. And so kids are not always so aware of that thirst, and they're not going to tell you, Mom, I'm thirsty, especially very young children. So a lot of times you kind of have to look for those symptoms. Sometimes your child, if they're getting dehydrated, maybe a little bit more cranky, maybe a little bit more sleepy. Sometimes just decreased urine output. So especially if a child that's in diapers or a younger child that's only going to the bathroom 2 or 3 times a day, they're not drinking enough water.
I've talked to some friends who are parents who have said they've gone from a perfect little angel to a demon child.
Right.
And didn't understand how that
What's
happened.
Going on.
Yes. And again, all because of just being dehydrated.
Yeah. That's such a common misconception, that how can we get dehydrated when we're at the lake? I mean, we have water everywhere. Mm-hmm. So if I was going to say one word once, and if I could say it 3 times, it's water. You need to be drinking water. So there's a lot of times when you're at the beach that you're not really conscious of the fact that you're losing water from your body. So through sweating, of course, your body's trying to kind of cool off. Another way you lose water is through your breath. And so especially if you're warm and you're playing hard or you're exercising, you're blowing off a lot of water just out of your breath. So a lot of times people aren't aware that they're losing so much water. And then many times too, we're kind of doing the fun stuff, and we're not thinking about stopping for breaks and not thinking about stopping to drink some water. So there's a lot of loss of water there.
There's so much emphasis on water. Is it always just water? What about electrolytes? What about the Gatorades, the Powerades, the sugary drinks that are supposed to be helpful?
Yeah, I think sometimes in an effort for parents to get kids to drink, they offer sugary beverages. And so after say sports or after really being out in the sun for a couple of days, things like Gatorade, Powerade, Pedialyte, which is sort of the Gatorade version for babies, might be good for immediately after you've had a lot of sweating and a lot of hard play. But really at that point, that becomes unuseful and actually can become dangerous because of the amount of sugar that those beverages contain. But we do know that things like fruit are very safe for children, and you can use fruit to flavor water, like natural fruit. And so those are some of the ways to kind of encourage kids to drink more of the water.
My last question, I would think we could get to an extreme here. And so is there any sign or any symptom that would require some type of escalation of medical attention or making a phone call the next day to the doctor's office?
Right. If you suspect that your child is getting dehydrated, I would probably more immediately pick up the phone and call your doctor's office, especially if your child is acting really weird and are just not being their usual self. They're not able to speak well. Maybe they're real lethargic. Then that's actually a time to maybe communicate with your physician, but you may want to think about going on to emergency care.
Okay. All right. Dr. Chad, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. We're back after this. We are joined now with Dr. Beth Milligan. Dr. Beth, you have worn a lot of hats: primary care, ER physician. I mean, you've done a lot in your medical.
I've been around the block
a time or two. Yes. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Sure.
We want to talk signs of heat illness. There's heat stress, maybe heat exhaustion, heat stroke. What do we need to know? And how serious can some of these heat-related illnesses be?
We need to define it first. What is heat exhaustion? It's basically the early signs that your body is experiencing stress from being too hot. It's that simple. Now, what does that mean? And put it into small terms, it means you're losing too much water out of your tissue. You literally, as we doctors say, become dehydrated. You lose a lot of fluid from your tissue very quickly.
It's interesting that sweating is one of those symptoms, because in the summer here in Arkansas, I mean, you can sweat just walking outside.
That's
and
true.
So the idea of sweating even more than that.
Well, you
Kind of
need
crazy.
the thing I want you to think about here, and this is a takeaway. If you're sweating, you're already reaching dehydration levels. You don't want to wait till you're sweating or thirsty to ask for water.
Okay. And you're also losing electrolytes, I would assume, too.
Absolutely, you're losing electrolytes when you're sweating. You don't want to wait to ask for water. We actually recommend that when you're outside in the heat, you need to drink 2 to 4 glasses of water every hour.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now that is for heat exhaustion. How do we remedy that? We've started noticing some of these symptoms. And so what do we need to do? Rush inside? What do we do?
Well, if you start experiencing these things, the very first thing you want to do, if you can, is to get access to water. And the second thing you want to do is loosen your clothing before you can try to get to a cool area. But I think the most important thing is to try to drink water. Someone needs to get it to you if you can't get to it. Loosen your clothing and move to a cool area.
Okay. What about heat stress or heat stroke? Are there two different things?
Yes, well,
Okay.
you're referring to the term heat stroke. Now, heat stroke is when you really get to the critical signs where you're going to have to call 911, get to a professional that can assist you. That's when you've reached the point that you can get very confused. People will start having seizures. They can really get in a critical situation. It can cause death. So those people need to seek emergency level response to treat their problems.
Okay. Heat stress, is there even such a thing?
Well, the heat stress, we're using the word heat stress is the response to heat exhaustion. So the stress is the stress signs that your body's showing when you're early on. So you need to know how to recognize those signs when you start feeling the results of being too hot.
Okay. What can we do beforehand to prevent or prolong?
Absolutely. Now, you can do this as a former weather person. It's to know your heat index. Pay attention before you send your kids outside or you go outside yourself. Look at the temperature and the humidity. If they're both really high and your weather forecasters are telling you that heat index is going to be really high, you need to be prepared, and you walk out with water, and you want to make sure you're dressed appropriately for that higher level of heat that you're going to be exposed to.
Okay. Dr. Beth, anything else we need to know before we step outside?
I think just be aware and look and know your surroundings. Check your temperatures before you go outside right now, because we're going to be hitting those triple digits.
All right. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for coming in and joining us. When we come back, we're actually going to share some tips on how to garden, how that helps create a healthy lifestyle.
So it's springtime, and then we're headed into the summertime, and so it's a really good time to start thinking about putting together a garden. Now, at this time when we're staying at home a lot, it's kind of a fun activity to have. It has lots of good benefits for physical and mental health. It's a really good form of exercise, especially for older people, but it's also an activity that can be done together as a family. one of the benefits is that you get out and you get your heart rate up, you're lifting, you're moving things. It's really equivalent to a pretty good workout, but not quite as intense as like a run or something like that, but could still get your heart rate up and give you some good benefits. It also helps, it's been shown that it helps to reduce stress and reduce stress hormones. So it the impact on mental health, people have a reduction in anxiety and they feel more calm when they're gardening, so it has great mental benefits. The other benefit is that you produce all these great vegetables that you can use in your home, that you can use to create healthy meals. You can also let be fun with your kids to sort of let them watch the vegetables grow, pick the items, kind of figure out how to prepare them, and so they learn how to use vegetables in their diet, and it's a really fun activity for everybody.
So gardening is a great outdoor activity, but there are so many others that we can participate in during the summertime. And joining me now is JJ Mayo. JJ, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
We want to talk about exercising in the heat. Of course, we just heard a little bit about gardening, and a lot of gardening can take place kind of early in the morning before the sun pops up. Right. But what about exercising, whether you're riding a bike or you're out running or swimming? How do we exercise in the heat and stay comfortable?
I understand.
Or stay healthy.
And there's so many people out there that want to get started exercising, but as the summer progresses, we're like in the dog days of summer now.
Yes.
People, they're a little afraid. They're like, I don't want to get out in the heat. But there are ways to do it and do it safely. So I'm excited to jump into that.
Yeah. So what are some of the good tips?
I think the biggest thing when you're exercising in the heat is to be prepared. Before you dive out into the 100-degree heat, you want to make sure that you're hydrated before, and that's the biggest thing is having 2 to 3 cups of water, something like that before a couple hours before you go out is a good thing. So you want to kind of pre-hydrate before you get out there, because we are going to be sweating more than we would in a fall or spring day. So you want to make sure before you even get out into the climate that you're going to be you're going to have fuel. You have fluid.
Is there a better time of day?
Yeah, the time of day is important. I get around exercise, it's like, what is the best time? It's when you can do it. A lot of people are working all day, and so they've got to get out in the morning before work, and that's a perfect time because it's cooler in the morning. Other people, if you have to get out in the heat of the day, I wouldn't prefer it, but some people do. And if you're going to do that, then what you should do is maybe start off a little slower. So you maybe get out there for 10 or 15 minutes instead of a half an hour like maybe you'd planned. So you start a little slow, you progress and let your body acclimate to that warmer temperature if that's the only time you have to run. But again, you still want to make sure you're hydrated before, and then you get into the exercise out in the heat. So.
Okay, well that's some great information. I was reading too where sometimes, and this might be more for an advanced athlete, that when it is so hot,
right,
and when the dew point is muggy, steamy, yucky,
right,
not to expect to be able to go
right
at your peak performance.
Sure.
And some people may think, well, I don't care that it's 72 degrees out. I should still be able to perform at a top level. But and I know this is more advanced, but that the heat, the humidity, the dew point, that all weighs in.
It is. You've got to factor that in as you start your workout. You've got to know that, okay, it's 90 degrees and 97 with the heat index, right? And so you can't perform like you would in a cooler fall day. You just can't do it. And so you have to have some perspective as you start your workout, for sure.
My last question: if we were to get into trouble, if we're out exercising, we're running, we're biking, we're swimming, whatever we're doing, and we get into trouble, we start feeling dizzy. What do we need to do?
Right.
Stop, I would think.
Yeah. You need to slow down. You need to take, probably just feel your body and say, okay, what is going wrong? Am I breathing too heavy? Am my heart racing? Those are the signs of dehydration and that type of thing. So, you just need to slow down, essentially. Slow down, and then if you need to get help, then obviously you can if you're outdoor exercise, you can flag somebody down if you needed to. But I think most of the time people are okay if they just slow down.
Okay.
So.
Good deal. All right. Well, we've got a few more minutes. If you can stick around, when we come back, we want to talk about how to acclimate in this weather so that we don't find ourselves in a bad situation. Welcome back. We've got JJ Mayo with us. And JJ, I should start by saying you are a professor.
I am.
Dietitian?
Yes.
Nutrition?
Dietitian, yes, at University of Central Arkansas.
Okay. So you've got a little street cred.
I've got a little bit. I teach sports nutrition, yeah.
Okay. Well, one of the topics, particularly this time of year, we're going to have football practice starting up, band practice starting up, cheer, dance, team. There's a segment of the student population who may have spent the better part of the summer inside.
Yeah.
And now we're going to ask them to go march on the field and carry a heavy instrument, or go suit up in pads and, tackle each other. How did those students acclimate to the elements so that they are their best selves and not passing out or something?
Sure.
Because they've been indoors, and now all of a sudden we're throwing them out into the heat and humidity and saying, hey, go, do it.
And I think the interesting thing is all of these kids are individual. So it depends on their background. For instance, if they've spent the better part of the summer here inside playing video games and then they go out, they should probably start really small. Maybe it's things like mowing the yard, or just doing some little things to expose them to that's right, walking the dog, just to acclimate a little bit at a time.
Okay.
There are other students who maybe they played a summer sport, maybe they're in baseball and now they're shifting to football and two-a-days and that type of thing. It's probably not as big a transition for those type of kids as opposed to folks that maybe if they're inside playing the video games and all of a sudden they're jumping out and they're having to do band practice all day,
So those students who have been inside and we're wanting to acclimate them to the outside,
right.
What do they need to be? Do they need to be wearing anything? I mean, obviously you don't want to go outside at 12 noon when it's 100 degrees dressed in black.
Right.
That's probably not smart.
That's not a good idea. That's not a good idea. No. I mean, I think if you're doing the household things around, you can easily just wear what you normally do, but it does make a big difference with the clothes. You talk about band and band members, you got all the gear on. I don't know that, and some of the coaches and band directors, hopefully what they're doing is they're not having them do that right off the bat, Sure. And hopefully there's some of that goes on too. And like the football coaches, they're not having them practice in pads every day, or they're transitioning them into using pads and not going, because the helmets, you're going to hold a lot of your heat in that helmet, and so doing a little bit at a time, hopefully that's going to be good for them. And along with that, if they're like the practices, hopefully they've got some time that the coaches will let them take breaks. And, so it's not going to be hopefully a just throwing them into this 2-hour band practice or 2-hour football practice, right?
JJ, this has been great advice. Thank you so much for coming in and being a part of AFMC TV. Thank you. And thank you so much for joining us as well. Remember, we're here every Wednesday, and next week we'll have a new topic. We're actually talking about healthcare technology, so be sure and tune in to catch that. Have a great day.